All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL DFS video. Going to be breaking down the Saturday two-game slate. It is a pretty interesting slate. We got one game that's projected to be pretty close and higher scoring, and another game that could potentially be a blowout, and a lot of injuries to break down. So with that, guys, let's go ahead and get into it. So I do want to start off with taking a peek at both games. So the first game, guys, Washington versus Philly. This is about a 7-point spread in favor of the Eagles, as you would expect. 44.5 point game total. I'm okay with that. I think that does end up making sense there. But the game that's going to be a little bit higher scoring is going to be the Green Bay Packers versus the Chicago Bears, which is a little bit interesting. It looks like the Packers are going to get Christian Watson back. Then you also have the Bears who are going to be going up against the Packers now without Micah Parsons. That being said, the Bears are going to be without Rome Odunze and Luther Burden. That being said, Zacchaeus, DJ Moore, they're not really losing much there. I mean, they are, but they're not. In terms of how their offense functions, they're really not losing much. And so we're probably going to be looking at those two plays, especially if we're going to assume that the Packers are not going to be able to get home as much. Thus, Caleb Williams is going to be able to throw the football a little bit more. Okay, so I kind of think we're going to be favoring that late night game a little bit more. Maybe the weather will change, but all in all, it seems like the weather's going to be pretty good this weekend in regards to temperatures. So let's go ahead and start off with Philly. Obviously, Philly is going to be in for a very good matchup. And so I don't mind the idea of either really going in on Jalen Hurts and then also one of, or even two of them. I think you can get away with both of them, either Devonta Smith or A.J. Brown. But I really do think we need to be doing some of those stacks. So if you're someone that's doing multiple lineups, you just simply do need to get to a stack with Jalen Hurts and then one of A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith, or you could even toss in Dallas Goedert, who also gets a great matchup. That's kind of the issue, is like it's a guessing game as to which player is going to score the touchdown. Last week, Dallas Goedert ended up scoring 2 touchdowns. So really, if you're doing lineups, like a simple stack here would be, I want at least, and maybe when lineups include Jalen Hurts, I want at least 2 of, and maybe even exactly. I think that'd probably be the better approach, exactly. And let's do that, exactly 2 of, and then Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown, and then Devonta Smith. I think that actually ends up being a good route to go. And then for Jalen Hurts, guys, we'll say we want a min exposure of about 20 for him. Now, we could independently play Barkley, and I really don't mind that. He's looked a little bit better, I would say, the last couple of weeks, but I wouldn't say he even looked bad the prior weeks. It's just he's been able to score touchdowns. Kind of the big difference there. Some people might read it a little bit different, but I mean, we want to begin pieces to this. And so if you're not getting to Jalen Hurts, you should begin to Barkley, even though he's priced up a little bit. Now, for Washington, we should be getting some value here, but also it does feel like a guessing game. So, guys, Bill ended up going off in the last game with Chris Rodriguez being out. That being said, I do think Chris Rodriguez would have also went out, and he's been the more consistent running back. Well, what's very interesting to me is that we didn't see Jeremy McNichols really be all that effective in that game last week. He is definitely more of a pass catcher, but if we're going to see, let's say 40, 40, 20, these plays, Chris Rodriguez and Bill, become very touchdown dependent plays. Could either of them score a touchdown? Sure. I still think Chris Rodriguez will be the RB1, but after Bill having a good game, it does feel like it's definitely more of a guessing game. Receiver-wise, I don't really think we want to mess with them too much. I do like the price tag of Terry McLaurin. Okay, kind of bailed us out last week with the touchdown, but he was also too cheap last week, and so I wouldn't necessarily, I mean, he still would have had a decent productive day even without the touchdown, but that feels like what he needs to do here in this game. And then tight end wise, I just don't want to mess around with the tight ends as well. Even Marcus Mariota, who has been solid, I don't think we want to play him. And so we're just going to pass up on a lot of Washington. And basically everyone's doing that, understand that. But I do think it ends up being the correct way to go. Now, the biggest difference on the slate to me is really the pricing difference between Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts. Then you could even toss in Caleb Williams. I think we are going to get a decent amount of value in going with Jordan Love over Jalen Hurts. And this is very much dependent on if Christian Watson ends up playing. He's such a big part of the offense, guys, that he does need to be active if Jordan Love's going to have a good game. And he played a pretty excellent game last week, guys, really up until that kind of unfortunate Christian Watson injury, which was an INT to Patrick Surtain, who made a phenomenal play. But really prior to that, it's probably one of the best games of a quarterback this whole year. The throws that he was making were just jaw-dropping. And so I don't know how we really grade that. You know, sure, he maybe underthrew Christian Watson a little bit, but I give Patrick Surtain a lot of credit there. And then Parsons getting injured. And then it was just, he was off. Jordan Love was off after that. But just a game ago, he had 20.3 DFS points against the Chicago Bears and looked good doing that. And so I think he's kind of the player that we want to get to. But yeah, if we're playing him, we probably do need to get to Christian Watson. He was on his way to a pretty solid game there against that Denver defense as well. And obviously coming in off of that very good game against the Bears, I do think we would ultimately want to play him, but we probably need to look at Reed a little bit. Dobbs isn't terrible. And then Matthew Golden kind of had a very impressive game. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up getting about 40% of the snaps. That being said, we're not playing Luke Musgrave. He just cannot stay on his feet. It's so annoying. And that's kind of the issue with Jordan Love, is that although I really like him, you could make a case for anyone after Christian Watson as well. And we still do have Josh Jacobs there, who's battling through an injury. He seems to be good to go, though. Even in that last game against the Bears, guys, was able to score a touchdown in a game that he was banged up. Said he got banged up in that game against Denver and played through it. And so he's definitely looking like another solid play. Now, this is something we typically wouldn't want to do. Josh Jacobs with Jordan Love. And I'm kind of like, I think we could actually get to the Bears running backs maybe here as well, who ended up having a pretty good game against the Packers in their last game. And so if the injuries to Rome Odunze and Luther Burden are actually going to make a big difference in this game, which it could, then I actually think we're going to see more of a run-heavy approach from the Bears. Now, we know Kyle Monangai had a pretty good game against the Packers last time out. Saw had 11 carries in that game against Cleveland. DeAndre Swift was able to pop some big plays in that game against Cleveland. But other than that, which sounds dumb to say, but other than that, wasn't much there. And I think that should kind of be the expectation for this game. We do see that DeAndre Swift is currently questionable. I'm expecting him to play. I'm not too worried about that. But it is a groin injury. You do worry about that a little bit, but I assume he's going to be good to go. So I could see a more run-heavy approach based off of the price, and I'd rather get to Kyle Monangai. But that being said, our clear value that we're going to get is going to be with DJ Moore, who should get a decent amount of targets. And then you also have Zacchaeus there, who also should get a decent amount of targets. 3 targets in the last game. Did not do anything with that, but I do think we're going to expect him to play at least 60% of the snaps, if not more. And then we do have the difficulty figuring out which tight end to get to here for the Bears. Cole Kmet's not terrible, a little bit touchdown dependent. I do think we're going to see a lot of 12 personnel again, just with those 2 receivers being out. A lot of people are just going to get to Colson Loveland, and I kind of agree with that for the site. I do think we want to begin to him. And so you guys are looking at kind of the lineup process that we're getting to right now. Very solid builds thus far, I would say. The issue that we're seeing here in general is that we're going to have too much salary left over. So we could go Eagles, then we have 8.3. We have too much salary left over. So there's almost too much value on this site. Like Zacchaeus, who's very appealing, I don't think we necessarily need to get to him. So we get to Love, 5.1 left over. Reed, if we're going to go with Love, I think that ends up making a decent amount of sense. And then we have some correlation with Barkley and Eagles. Obviously having Jacobs in a lineup with Love, Watson, and Reed doesn't exactly make sense, but overall I do like the lineup that we're getting to. Then real quickly, guys, I just ran some lineups just to show you guys an example of maybe what we could be looking at. Somewhat similar. It did get to Swift and McLaurin, then DJ Moore, Debo. I don't know if I necessarily want to get to Debo, but this is the top projected lineup. Total ownership wise right now, not terrible, but also not. I kind of like the lineup I gave you guys a little bit better. I don't mind Caleb Williams for what it's worth. He is too cheap. Again, if the Packers defense could struggle now with Parsons not being there. And so Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, Zacchaeus, Loveland stacks all make a bunch of sense there as well. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. Appreciate you guys being here. Make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel as well. If you guys would like access to that NFL DFS lineup optimizer, head on over to 9to5sports.com. Get access to that tool for a low monthly cost of $10 a month. Appreciate you guys. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.